liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councillor Peterson.
Here.
Councillor Nelson.
Here.
Councillor Hushchild.
Here.
Mayor Boucher.
Here. Are there any announcements from councilors this evening? Hearing none, we have no public hearing. Mr. Mulder, the only communications we have is the stuff that's on file that doesn't apply to tonight's evening.
Yeah, and if you want any copies of that, just let us know and we can make copies for you.
Thank you. Public discussion. This is the time that members of the public can address the council about any item not on the agenda. We ask that you limit your time to 3 minutes per person. If there's anyone that wishes to address the council at this time, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public discussion this evening? With no one wishing to discuss anything under this section, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Peterson. Roll call, please.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hushchild.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Ordinances. This is the second reading for ordinance 2022-03. An ordinance amending Chapter 5 alcoholic beverages of the Hermantown City Code by modifying the rules governing the perimeter of the exterior licensed space. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
You got a motion by Councillor Housechild, second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
So this is kind of in response to the changes that happened during COVID. This relaxes some of the rules relative to their outside serving area. It just needs, instead of a fence of 6 feet, it just needs to be some kind of barrier of 30 inches. And ideally, it needs to be on their application so we know exactly where that is. So we will communicate that prior, when the applications for renewals go out, we will communicate that with all of the license holders.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, we'll move on to public input. Is there any public input on ordinance 2022-03? If there's any public input on this ordinance, please state your name and address for the record. Close public input and ask for a roll call.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hushchild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Another ordinance, second reading, an ordinance amending section 1020, design standards of the Hermantown zoning code. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Housechild. Mr. Mulder.
This is simply to correct a drafting error. It said, when the word said of, it should have said the word or. So the language reads, dead end streets are prohibited except as stubs to permit future street extensions or when designed as cul-de-sacs.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? With none, we'll move on to public input. Is there any public input on this ordinance? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input on the second reading of ordinance 2022-04? With no public input, we will move to a roll call.
Councillor Hushchild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next is resolutions. Resolution 2022-37, resolution authorizing the Director of Finance and Administration to make 2021 transfer between funds. Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Housechild. Mr. Mulder, would you like Kevin to explain this to us?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Orm?
Council. As part of the road plan in 2021, we redid Lake Junction, and as part of that, there was some sewer work, stormwater work, and water improvements done. We previously did a transfer for part of those, and we've now finalized the project. So this is going to transfer from the sales tax fund for the water improvements, from the sewer and from the stormwater funds to the debt service fund to pay for those small portion of the improvements done on Lake Junction.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, we'll move to public input. Is there any public input on this resolution? Is there any public input on resolution 2022-37? If so, please state your name and address for the record. With no public input, we'll move to a roll call.
Councillor Peterson,
Aye.
Councillor Nelson,
Aye.
Councillor Housechild,
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-38, a resolution to elect the standard allowance available under the recovery loss provision of the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund established under the American Rescue Plan Act. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second, with noting its revenue loss provision. Just terminology, words.
Oh. Okay. Second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder, do we have Mr. Orm?
Sure.
Mr. Orm?
Yeah, the purpose of this resolution is twofold. One is we want to adopt the standard allowance in order to open up the uses of what we can use the American Rescue Plan Act dollars for. Secondly, it will make the reporting of what we do use the money for to the federal government much easier. And so cities now have the option to adopt this, and it'll make the reporting easier, and it opens up the uses more broadly to what was initially thought we could use the money for.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? I think from the council, we'll move to public input. Is there any public input on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input on resolution 2022-38? We'll move to a roll call.
Councillor Nelson,
Aye.
Councillor Housechild,
Aye.
Councillor Peterson,
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-39, resolution approving special use permit for construction of an accessory structure in excess of 1,200 feet in the R3 zoning district at 3741 Ghetchal Road and imposing conditions thereon. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Housechild, second by Councillor Peterson. Should we have Mr. Johnson address this?
That'd be great.
Eric?
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is an accessory structure. It's 1,700 square feet, 1,700 square feet in size on a 3.3 acre property. Accessory uses greater than 1,200 square feet are allowed in the R3 zoning district, assuming they meet minimum setbacks from either property lines or other structures. In the case of this proposed structure this evening, it either meets or greatly exceeds all those required setbacks. The closest home is approximately 120 feet away from where this proposed structure is. The structure is also proposed to match the existing home and be set back quite a bit, once again, from any existing homes or other roadway surfaces that way.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, Do we have any public input on resolution 2022-39? If so, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, this is Adam Lilyquist, 3741 Ghetchal Road. Just looking for approval from the council to build a storage garage for my personal belongings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public input on this motion? If so, please state your name and address. We'll close the public input and ask for a roll call.
Councillor Hochschild,
Aye.
Councillor Peterson,
Aye.
Councillor Nelson,
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-40, resolution approving an extension of the final planned unit development plan for Engwall's redevelopment. Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Hochschild. Mr. Mulder, should we hand this one to Mr. Johnson again?
Yes, please.
Eric?
Great, thank you again. As you mentioned, this is an extension of the final planned unit development for the Engwall's redevelopment project. The city has been engaging and speaking with the applicant, Sandy Hoff, for a number of months on this project and trying to ascertain its project's feasibility and viability. The city will continue to work with the applicant and developer as they're able to move forward so we can see this project move on towards a construction, hopefully sometime later this year or next year.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council? If nothing from council, we'll move to public input. Is there any public input on resolution 2022-40? If anyone wishes to comment on this resolution, please state your name and address for the record. We have no public input, so we will move to a roll call.
Councillor Nelson,
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild,
Aye.
Councillor Peterson,
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-41, resolution approving an extension of the final planned unit development plan for the pillars of Hermantown. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder, should we have Mr. Johnson address this again?
He's on a roll, so let him keep going.
Should we give him the whole agenda?
Well, not the whole agenda, but the next couple items.
Eric?
Great, thank you again. This is the same request that we just previously heard in the Engwall's development. This is the extension of the final planned unit development for the Pillars of Hermantown project that KTJ 360 has been in front of the city. Likewise, we've been working with them a number of months on this project and hope to have this come to some sort of resolution within the coming months.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from council? With no questions or comments, we'll move to public input. Is there any public input on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Any public input on resolution 2022-41? With no public input, we will move to a roll call.
Councillor Hochschild,
Aye.
Councillor Peterson,
Aye.
Councillor Nelson. Aye. Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-42, resolution authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk to execute and deliver utility service agreement with Titan Premier LLC. Do you have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Hochschild, second by Councillor Nelson. Mr. Mulder, is this another Mr. Johnson?
Yes, please.
Eric?
Great, thank you. And I can take a break after that. So I appreciate the time. So this is an association with the 6-lot radar run plat that the city council had approved this past February. What this utility extension does, it allows the developer to extend utilities which are currently in the right of way at essentially the radar and Ghetchal Road. He's going to extend them 660 feet to the north, the full length of his property. There will be placed within a 30-foot easement on the developer's property. This does show on the plat that is being circulated to the city right now. In addition, the applicant has indicated that he will be providing a letter of credit for 125% of the construction cost of the work. What that does, it allows the city to sign off on the plat and the developer to sign, actually to sell lots at that point. So the surety would be in place that in case something does happen, these lots can receive both water and sewer at some date.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from council? Hearing none, is there any public input on resolution 2022-42? If anyone wishes to comment on this resolution, please state your name and address for the record. With no public comment, we will move to a roll call.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson. Aye. Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-43. Resolution authorizing and directing mayor and city clerk to execute and deliver an agreement for engineering and park planning services with a total not to exceed contract amount of $19,650 for park improvements at Fichtner Park with Northland Consulting Engineers. Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Nelson. Mr. Mulder.
I'll take this one, and David can answer any questions. The purpose of this resolution is to do the planning at Fichtner Park as part of the community recreation. As you recall, we specifically excluded this portion of the community recreation from the construction manager. And we're going to do that through our typical process with the city engineer. So this is kind of phase one of that. So it's like by the end of July, we'll have a plan in place with budgets for what could be done at Fichtner Park and what would be done at Fichtner Park if the referendum were to pass in November.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? This will also provide us for a plan in either event, correct?
That's correct.
So we would have an idea of what's needed and desired for this park, regardless of funding source. Any other comments from council? Is there any public input on this matter? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public comment on resolution 2022-43? Roll call, please.
Councillor Nelson. Aye. Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson. Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-44. Resolution authorizing and directing mayor and city clerk to execute and deliver agreement for the use of the city of Hermantown athletic fields with the Hermantown Youth Soccer Association. Do we have a motion?
Approved. Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Hochschild. Mr. Mulder.
So this is the agreement with the Soccer Association for the use of the fields, typical of what we have done in the past, but this one is changed to allow for that grant for the water exception for their irrigation.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Is there any public input on this matter? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Any public input on resolution 2022-44? Roll call, please.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson. Aye. Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-45, resolution receiving bids and awarding contract for purchase of an advanced metering infrastructure for water meters in the amount of $408,620. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Hochschild. Mr. Mulder?
We'll have Mr. Sense, the Public Works Director, explain this one.
Paul?
Mayor and Council, thank you. As we talked earlier, we're asking you to approve what we put in our 2022 and 2023 capital improvement plans. We are replacing our existing R-type radios with the M-type radio. These will give us better data. They will be self-read instead of having to actually have an individual physically read these via a different radio system that's no longer supported, and will be losing the support for that in 2023 or 2024. This will require at least two antennas being installed by Core and Main or their contractor. We will purchase the remaining radios from Core and Main and install them with our own force and labor force here out of Public Works over the course of 22, 23, and may lag a little bit into 2024, depending on availability of these water radios. This will give us real-time data that read once an hour for each endpoint user, and we'll store the data for up to 3 years. So if there is an issue, we will have the data to go back on hourly for every endpoint user.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? So this is a change from a process where the meter reader has to be at least near the property to read the current meter, and the new system will allow the data to go directly into city records at City Hall.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there any public comment on resolution 2022-45? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input on this resolution? Roll call, please.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-46. Resolution authorizing and directing mayor and city clerk to execute an acceptance of easement agreement to the city of Hermantown from Gethsemane Covenant Church of Hermantown for the Ugsted Road and Arrowhead Road improvement.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Nelson. Mr. Mulder.
So this is just an easement as part of that road project. This will allow us to do some improvements there, including sidewalk in that area. We presented this to the church. The church reviewed it and finally accepted it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Is there any public input on this resolution? Is there any public resolution input on resolution 2022-46? Please state your name and address for the record. With no public input, we will move to a roll call.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson. Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-47. Resolution approving the employment of Adam Sheminski as the certified building official. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
As you know, Jim Ritz has served the city for a number of years as the building official. So we started, and is retiring this year. So we started that recruitment process. Jim, John Geisler, and myself interviewed 4 candidates, and our recommendation that we would hire Adam Sheminski as the certified building official. He'll be a very good employee. We're really confident in his experience and his demeanor. So we think we found a good replacement for Jim.
Thank you. Is there any council comment or questions? With no comments, is there any public input on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public comment on resolution 2022-47? Roll call, please.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-48, resolution approving a financial conflict of interest policy for purchases with federal funds to the city handbook. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Housechild, second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
We are looking at purchasing body worn cameras for the police department, and we're getting a grant from the federal government of $32,000. But as part of that, we need to have a conflict of interest policy that basically says employees can't receive gifts, nor the city doesn't purchase from people that have interest in that company.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, is there any public input on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address. Is there any public input on resolution 2022-48? Roll call, please.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Housechild.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-49, resolution approving wage increase for the city administrator. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Nelson. Mr. Mulder?
So we discussed this at the performance evaluation 2 weeks ago. These wage increases are consistent with what the other employees of the city received.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
I just want to thank Mr. Mulder for his continued leadership and the role that he plays for the city. He not only has an amazing staff underneath him that he has put together and works with, but he also has great vision for the overall good of the city. And I want to thank him for the work that he does.
Thank you. Anything else from council?
Nicely said. I agree.
I think we can all agree with that. Anything else from council? If nothing, we'll move to public input. Is there anyone in the public that has comment on 2022-49? If so, please state your name and address. Is there any public input on this resolution? I guess the public is happy. Let's move to a roll call.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Housechild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next, we have a very important item, motion to recess.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Nelson, second by Councillor Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approve, opposed, same sign.